I love it. And we're live. Welcome to LOOPcast. Welcome to Independence Day week. Here we are. Pogo is off gallivanting about in the boonies somewhere, enjoying his family. We're going to miss you, Pogo, but we have Logan Church with us from our Catholic Vote political arm, so we're very happy to have you back, Logan. And it's our first time on together because you've subbed in for me before. So
yeah, girl power. Sorry, Josh.
Oh, hey, Josh. It's Josh and the ladies. The thorn between the roses.
He's not going to complain.
No.
I'm not going to complain.
Aw.
What a wonderful way to celebrate Canada Day, right?
That's right. Oh, Canada. This is great. Awesome. Well, did you guys do anything fun over the weekend? Got any good family time stories?
I was at a baseball tournament for my stepson all weekend, 6 hours both days. But I'm proud to say that we lost, so we're done with tournaments.
Yeah. Spoken like a true mother. Yeah.
How can you talk like that and be on our political team? Like, you want to win. Come on.
I want everybody to have a good time. I hope everyone had fun. They're 12. They're 12.
Oh, man. All right. Well, sorry for the stepson's baseball team, but glad that you are off the hook for the rest of the summer. It's hot out there. Speaking of hot, we have a great show for you today. We are going to dive into the continued fallout. And yes, that's a nuclear war reference. The continued fallout from the Biden-Trump debate last week. The knives were out this weekend. And then we have an amazing Supreme Court decision that just dropped about 45 minutes ago. So we're going to go into all the details on the Trump immunity case and what it means for the future of our Constitution. We have some good news, and we might dive into the Olympics a little bit in Twilight Zone. We'll see how it goes. But first, over the weekend, we saw the press, the left, everyone but his family pretty much continue to turn on Biden. And it was if it wasn't so scary to me to watch the president of the United States in his dotage, knowing that he has his finger on the red button, if it wasn't so scary, it would have felt really good. But can we pull up that Time magazine cover there, Simon? I think this says it all, just for the people on the chat to see. Yeah, so we have Time. For those of you who are listening audio only, we have a big red Time magazine cover, mostly blank. There's Biden strolling off to the left, and one word in white, panic, period. Josh, is this an accurate picture of what was happening over the weekend?
It's accurate in the sense that the left-wing pundits from Time magazine, the New Yorker, New York Times, are all freaking out. You major editorial boards all across the country are saying, whoa, this is bad news. He's obviously cannot be, run for president again. And their concern is that Joe Biden is going to lose the election and that Donald Trump is going to win. So it's not like they care about, like they're worried that their guy's going to lose.
Right.
But what's interesting, we mentioned this even on Friday about how like all the New York Times reporters were like freaking out, all the columnists, President Biden's my friend, you must bow to the race. Biden can't go on like this, all that kind of stuff. So we're just seeing more and more of these voices go over. I've been watching, I like to watch the Predict It market where people, the gambling stuff where they bet their own money on it. And at one point during the weekend, Biden was trading at 51 cents to whether or not he would get the nomination. That means like people were convinced he had just barely better than half chance. The incumbent president, who's already locked up, 95% of the delegates, and half the people were not even sure he'd be willing to get the nomination. Now that's bumped back up to about 60 cents or 60% as you were. But, I should have bought it at 51 cents instead of 59, but whatever, we'll move on from there. But the fact of the matter is, what we haven't seen is Democratic elected officials, senators, congressmen, whatnot, that have joined that circus. They, in fact, have not. Gavin Newsom's like, this is all bad talk. It helps the Republicans. He's our guy. Biden's our guy. Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, comes out and says it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, he had a bad night. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. When Barack Obama decided Friday afternoon to tweet out like, "Hey, I've had a bad debate night, but Joe's our guy." I knew right then and there, because he's still the head of the party. I knew right
Not
then and
untrue.
there that they're riding with Biden. He's gonna be the nominee, and all this talk by conservatives, it kind of cracks me up. Oh, yeah, our party is full of dunderheads, but the other
Yeah.
side are callous, evil, conniving people. And someone made this point. Everyone thinks that their political party is run like the show Veep, where everything is a total circus, right? And the other
Right.
side is, like Kevin Spacey, right? And House of Cards, like that evil, conniving, five-dimensional chess, and they'll murder people, But it's actually, if we're quite honest, it's both parties are like Veep. They're both kind of clown shows, okay? I mean, like this is like we are a long way from the Constitutional Convention here, people.
Well,
So
and
I just
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, it seems like the interesting thing for me over the weekend was that you had this divide because the mainstream media up until this point has been 100% just spitting out the regime's talking points of like behind
right.
closed doors he's doing jumping jacks and his young staff can't keep up with him, and then all of that just changed there. I mean, Logan,
Well,
or go for it.
okay. No, ladies first.
Josh, you
Ladies
have so much
first.
to say.
I know. Well, there is so much to say. That's why we have a whole hour.
Yeah.
But Logan, I wanted to ask if you kind of saw the same thing. Was this new divide in the big media, big government unity?
Right. I think you're spot on. It's a little concerning because I think, like he said, from our side, first off, I want to say the media is not just afraid of their guy losing. They're mostly afraid of our guy winning. And so that's the last thing they want. And so it is odd to see them not spitting out the talking points. And so it definitely leaves conservatives, where's tinfoil Tom when we need him? It leaves us wondering, what's going on that we're not seeing behind the smoke and mirrors here. But I mean, I think that it is a little concerning that we had a debate so early. It's the earliest debate in notable history, and this is how it went. I mean, talk about night and day from the State of the Union. I thought for sure he was going to come out swinging like he did at the State of the Union, hopped up on whatever they had him hopped up on. But this time it appears that he took the placebo or something because he fell flat on his face.
He took the placebo. She said it. She said it.
I mean, the thing is, I think the reason why we're seeing this strange reaction is because, for months upon months, everyone could see the president's decline. And so the media voices were like, coming up to big time people in the Democratic Party saying, "Hey, this guy, I mean, are you concerned that President Biden, it looks like he's missing a step. He was at the G8 or G7 and he's like, it looks like he's going the wrong way and they have to grab my hand. Are you worried that, and they're all like, oh, no, all the Democrats, like, oh yeah, we're totally, oh, he's great. He's the sharpest he's ever been. I mean, he reads,
Joe Stark Scarborough. Yeah.
and they just start, they just triple down like, oh yeah, he's like sharp as a razor, man. You get him in a room and he's the smartest guy in the world. He's like makes Thomas Jefferson look like a kindergartner. Oh, okay, sure. And so the media is carrying water for this obvious lie, but they're having to believe it and have to go out and sell it and tell the American people like, no, he's actually pretty smart, and it's just if it gets past 8 p.m. he's not as great. Then the debate hits, and they feel this is what's going on. These media pundits are embarrassed because they were out there selling a lie. They put their names on the line, and they had to sell it to themselves and then convince other people. And now everyone realizes it was all just baloney. Right. And so these pundits feel like, hey, I just got hoodwinked. You just made me look like a fool for the last 7-8 months. And Democrats like, what? He's try to change the discussion, but this looks a lot like the inside access or whatever it was weekend that Donald Trump had in October. It's just like a horrible weekend for a campaign, and then you try to get over it. The problem with this, though, for Biden is, what do you still got 4 or 5 months of campaigning, and you look like you're completely out of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, we had reports coming out of Politico this morning, and they say, on condition of anonymity, sources close to the president say that they're going to try and have a town hall. They're going to do some in-depth interviews to try and, start to combat this demented old man performance that we saw last week. Jill Biden, our first lady, had another sort of tactic. She decided they had a pre-scheduled photo shoot with Vogue magazine over the weekend at Camp David with the family. So the family all goes there, and they decided to roll out her photo, cover of Vogue for August a few weeks early. There we have, I don't know if we can pull that up, Simon. There's Jill, and she, of
fourth
course,
time she's been on this cover.
Yeah, and Logan, you pointed out something about Melania Trump. How many times was she on the cover of Vogue?
Well, while she was first lady, 0, right?
Yeah.
And I was, while we were talking, earlier this morning, we were chit-chatting, and I was like, they all loved her when she was a model. She was, everyone loved her. And then she married President Trump, and, then he became president. Let's be clear. It was not when she married the guy. It was much down the road. But there's such a comparison.
In fact, they loved Trump. They loved Trump before he became president. He was on Saturday Night Live. He had a hit show on NBC. They all loved him.
Watching this morning, I was watching his interview from '88 with Oprah, where she was like, "Are you going to run for president?" And he was like, I don't want to, but I really hate seeing this country sold out. He was kind of just going on about that, saying, if it came down to it, he would consider it. He doesn't want to rule anything out, but like it wasn't in the plan. Like he liked making money was basically but she was like, you should run. Like, do you think you'd win? And now it's like, I want to replay that for Oprah.
Yeah, that would be a fun one.
Yeah. No, yeah. I do think it's interesting though, because on the topic of the first lady, the clip of her after the debate, with her husband, actually, first off, the debate itself, putting the Politico inside me aside, it actually made me really sad to watch Joe Biden on stage, because you have to think, like, this guy, he's clearly not right. Put the fact that he's the president aside, which is terrifying. This guy's not right. He's clearly, this is, as people say, elder abuse. But then his wife at the end being like, you did so good. You knew all
answered
the facts.
Every question.
Like, good job, and it's
you
like,
graduated from kindergarten. Good. Yeah.
I felt like she was talking to a child, and he was like, yeah, like it's just sitting there nodding. And it made me kind of sad, because as a wife, how are you doing that to your husband?
Yeah.
It's just.
It did. Yeah, it did make me sad.
Oh, but the family convinced them all over the weekend. You got to stick with it. You got to stay in the race or whatever. And leading the charge was Hunter Biden, who's looking for that pardon, obviously. But you see this that happened in the news today. The news came out. This cracks me up. Okay, so there was a debate watch party in Los Angeles. Okay, and here's who was at the party. Okay, the vice president's husband, Doug Emhoff, right? Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and you had other high Hollywood celebrities, right? And so the account of this debate, they said after a few answers were in, Rob Reiner was screaming about losing, and Jane Fonda had tears in her eyes.
Oh, made Jane Fonda cry.
It just.
Oh,
it was a rough.
Hanoi Jane is crying. Oh,
so sad.
It was, the debate started, and within 5 minutes, I think everybody was like, "Oh, there we go." Trump didn't even have to really swing. Typically he comes to these things feeling a little punchy. He got a little sassy every now and then, but I think even Trump from the start was like, "Oh yeah, no."
Yeah, it was amazing. I was watching. Go ahead. You have so much to say. We just can't.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was listening to the New York Times editors. They have Matter of Opinion. They were doing a little bit of a debrief after the debate, and it was Ross Douthat, Ezra Klein, and the girl. Sorry, can't remember your name. But it was amazing, because Ezra Klein and the woman, they were both very pro-Biden. And what they were trying to do, Ezra Les, were trying to separate what they called the substance of the debate from the performance of Joe.
Mm.
But what
Right.
even they had to come down to, they were like, on substance, Trump was lying through his teeth. He was terrible. It was all just BS. And Joe's substance was actually really good. He just couldn't bring it home to like the overall
I mean, we're going to
narrative.
pretend that Biden wasn't lying too?
Right. I know.
Or
right?
more?
Or lying more. But it was just, they were trying to find the silver lining in the debate for Biden, and they just couldn't. And even at the end of the conversation, Ezra Klein's like, there just wasn't any silver lining. It was unmitigated disaster. And Ross Douthat's just like, yep, pretty much. And it was amazing to watch the long knives come out. There was something interesting though, Josh, from an elected Democrat. I think Governor Whitmer of your fair state, the Mitten, she made an interesting, I don't know if it was a slip up. Like, did she mean to say this? But I think it was, quote, Michigan is no longer winnable for Mr. Biden. What was going on there?
She told that to a very big Democratic donor. She said, after this debate performance, Michigan is not winnable for Biden. Now, she would probably know more about that than I would, to be honest, because she would know what's going to motivate her voters to come out and vote. To me, it seems like it's a little bit of an exaggeration, a little bit premature to say that, but maybe she's trying to say that because, in other words, you need me and I'll rescue the party. So that's kind of the reason why I'm a little skeptical if that's really that bad, but we'll see. But the thing is, is it because she's convinced that it's going to be that much harder to get Democratic leaning voters to come out and vote for a corpse? I get that. But what I found most telling about this little news nugget is there is no way that she let this get out. If this happened, if this truly is what she said to this big Democratic donor, then that donor probably turned around and squeaked to someone like Gavin Newsom's camp, and Gavin's the one who put it out. Because there's no way that Gretchen Whitmer probably threw something against the wall when she heard this got out, because that makes her look very bad and unloyal to Biden. And so she is like not happy with this at all.
Yeah.
And if Biden loses, then people will be able to say, well, you were out there saying he couldn't win Michigan. You're part of the problem. And she is. So she was out with a statement this morning saying, I'm totally loyal to Biden. I'm riding with Biden. She's trying to go double time because she's worried that people are thinking that she's not part of the team. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, she definitely not the Ro Khanna voicing. Ro Khanna was comparing Biden to Rocky Balboa in his tweet, which I was thinking, do I really want the president of the United States to be compared to Rocky Balboa? I mean, we talked about this last week. We love a good Rocky movie, but
the way he talks,
not a statesman. Not a statesman.
I feel like I've heard Rocky Balboa talked about on this podcast more than I have on any podcast. So we're low key.
Okay.
That's right.
Low key Rocky Balboa stands.
He's a winner. Josh likes a good winner. And I mean, we all do because we're all into politics. We like to win.
That's right. That's why you should have been cheering for victory at your softball game.
Hashtag winning. Yeah.
Or baseball.
It was
whatever.
Baseball, Little League. The Scouts are not there yet. It's all good. It's July.
Oh,
and we should not still be doing sports. Moving on.
Yeah. I think another sort of strain of the reaction. So we had the media going one way. We had the elected Democrats and the family going, doubling down. And then we had conservative reactions coming out. Many conservatives over the weekend were saying things like, it's too late. You made your bed. Now you got to lie in it. He is the nominee. You have 95% of the delegates for him. For the sake of democracy, whatever we have there, we have to stick with Biden. But then we did have Kevin Roberts. I don't know if we can play this clip. Kevin Roberts was on
the head of Heritage.
Yeah, head of Heritage. Good friend. Just turned 50. Happy birthday, Kevin. So he was on Fox News Sunday, and he's asking about that 25th Amendment again. So I don't know if we can roll that.
Terrible situation. Look, the political dilemma is legitimate. We ought to be talking about it. But I say the following, and I put politics off to the side. If, in fact, we're asking the question whether President Biden is up to the campaign, we have to ask the question, is he up to serve as president of the United States? I lament the fact, my political differences with him aside, that it seems as if the answer is no. And I think the more this goes on, this question about the political donors not ponying up for the Democratic campaign, we also have to ask the question if the 25th Amendment ought to be invoked. This is not just a political problem, Shannon. I think it's a constitutional and health crisis. It's a terrible.
Yeah, great points there. I mean, if he's
So
not up
true.
to campaigning, what is he doing with his hand on the red button? I mean, it's so scary.
You're just
I don't know.
inviting China to take over Taiwan or something like this because you've got a corpse in the White House. Like, I mean, how is this good news
Exactly.
for our country? How is it good news for international relations? So I agree with him.
Yeah,
The cabinet
like
should be talking about it.
absolutely. And just to review, so the 25th Amendment would be where the vice president and a majority of the cabinet make the determination that the president is not fit to serve. And it was passed, I believe, in response to FDR. Is that right, Josh? I think we talked about that.
Well, I mean, FDR died in office, and then you had a situation during the 50s where Eisenhower was president and he had a heart attack. And so people are starting to realize, wait a minute now, what would happen if we had a president that was incapacitated but not dead and unable to perform the functions? And you've got a Cold War, Russia and all that kind of stuff. We need a functioning president. And so the 25th Amendment is this opportunity for the president himself can step aside temporarily, and that's happened several times. Like Reagan did it when he went, and George Bush when they went under the knife.
Mhm.
And the vice president becomes the acting president for a while. But the other mechanism of the 25th Amendment is where the vice president and majority of the cabinet just say, "Hey, sorry, jig is up, your time's over, bye bye.
Yeah.
You do not have the physical or mental capacity to continue on with his job." And that's, I mean, who doesn't think that's right? I mean, that's obvious, but everyone in the world could see this.
Yeah. I don't know. How would you feel about President Kamala Harris there, Logan?
It's only 4 months.
There you go.
I mean,
the attitude.
It'd be 6, but yes.
Technically a little bit, but then the holidays comes, and like, what really happens in the government in the holidays? I mean, come on. No, I mean, I will say for a presidential candidate back in the day who couldn't even get 6 delegates, I think it would be quite the progression for her to be the vice president alone is a
Right.
huge jump for her. But to then step into the position of presidency, that would be historic.
I would love it. I would love it. I would love it.
So,
She's so politically toxic. She would lose in a landslide.
Yeah. So, I will say she's politically toxic. Her own party didn't want her, and like they'll hold their nose. Your base is going to hold their nose and vote for whoever they have to vote for. But there are a lot more voters in America that are not a part of a base than people realize. I think non-politicos, or even politicos, I think a lot of people think you're either R or D, and that's really not the case. There are so many people who vote situationally because maybe they're not as aware of the party platforms. But that being said, I think she would be fun to campaign against, easy to campaign against. But the political world has had like rumors going around about like a Gretchen Kamala duo, and that would be fun for Josh.
Yeah, two Karens coming at you. The American people are like, yeah, no thanks. No, I mean, if Kamala is if Biden were to be pushed out or resign, and then she's now moves from vice president to being president, yeah, I mean, she totally loses. I mean, there's no question about this. In fact, the Biden campaign and the leading Democrats put themselves in this bind. In fact, I blame Barack Obama, because it is apparently Barack Obama who convinced Joe Biden to pick Kamala Harris as his running mate, when in fact Biden apparently wanted to pick Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And if he did that, then the whole other different discussion, because back in like January, they would have said, yeah, maybe Biden could resign and pass the torch to Gen X, Gretchen Whitmer, who's like 1,000 years younger than you are, and she could run. And that would have been I would have been afraid of that, because I know I can't stand her. She's my governor. She's horrible, but she is canny, and she has good political instincts.
She's good at campaigning.
And she would have done very well against Trump. I think Trump could have still defeated her, but I mean, the fact that they had a running mate in Vice President Kamala Harris who is so politically tone deaf and not really, when she ran a competitive campaign, which was the 2020 presidential nomination, she got dead last and dropped out before Anyway, before the snow fell in Iowa. I mean, she was
Yeah,
terrible.
she was a DEI hire
People-
for sure.
People liked Tulsi Gabbard more than they liked her in her own party.
And that's saying
And so-
something.
And that's saying something because Tulsi doesn't exactly march the party line.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
but
I definitely agree it was a mistake.
Kamala is a woman of the people, and she is out there on the streets. We had her. She was doing an ad for
Yes,
the
did you see
Black
that?
Entertainment Awards this weekend. Simon, can we play
Yeah.
that? I just dropped that in the chat for you because I just want to give everyone
This is
a
so
taste
hilarious.
of what it will be like should Harris step up and serve her country.
You heard it.
Sure.
You heard it here. Kamala Harris is for the streets.
She is for the streets.
It's like that meme. How do you do, fellow kids? You know?
Oh, it is
like,
like that.
she's so hip.
Yeah, and I just can't stand like
Ooh.
how do I look like I don't want to like insert myself into a culture that I'm not a part of, but like if you're a Black person and you're watching this and she's like trying to put on Black culture for you, it's like remember Barack Obama would change his accent depending on what group he was talking to. This is so much worse because it's not even it's like she never even learned how to talk like that. Oh,
No,
So-
whatever.
I don't.
It's not like Hillary Clinton talking like she's a Black woman when she went campaign in South Carolina. That was pretty disgusting. You know?
So, first off, I think candidates, that's like rule one. Don't go around, especially when you're aired on live TV, don't go around changing your accent when you're going places. People don't like that.
That's right.
But also, I mean, there are plenty of Black activists who say this is the exact thing they cannot stand. When you have Black people who were raised mostly in white culture or who, have kind of assimilated to like white culture, trying to pretend like they're a part of something that they're not. There's plenty of Black activists who say this is cringy. So
yeah, it was super cringe. Oh my goodness. Well, it seems like in the court of public opinion, at least, it's pretty clear Biden is unfit to serve. We had a YouGov poll also over the weekend agreeing with the leftist media. 72% of Americans are now saying Biden is unfit, not just to campaign, but to serve as president of the United States. And Logan, I mean, you've been inside a lot of really high level campaigns. So like, what's the conversation right now in the Trump campaign as they're watching all this unfold the last 3 days?
based off my conversations with my friends that are still in Trump world, as it stands, assuming that Biden stays in the race, they're feeling pretty good, but nobody's too confident because you can never really know. If you look at the polls this time before last election day, and look how that turned out. So I think people are trying not to get cocky, but they're riding a high right now after that presidential debate. That's for sure. It's hard not to. And again, let's not forget that President Biden is the one who called this debate. And so I think the Trump campaign
set the rules.
Yeah, ecstatic with how this went. And it was at CNN. So it's like, talk about having the deck stacked against you and then watching the cards fall.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the camp of what was he thinking? Like, why would Trump agree to this? Why would he agree to all these rules and not even negotiate? But I mean, he rolled the dice, he gambled, and he won big time in this event. And next debate is set for September 10th. Josh, is it going to happen?
I think I don't know. I mean, it was so bad of a performance that, in fact, it makes it that Biden's going to have to say yes because he's got to prove that he can bounce back, right? Like if it had just been kind of crappy, he might have been able to say whatever and come up with some excuse. But it was so devastating, so bad for Biden that now he's got to prove to them all. Like if he tries to side chicken from this, Republicans will just be able to barbecue him, and independents 80% of independents 80% of independents think he's not up for the job, and so you have to be able to convince these people that no, I have a shot. I'll do better. It would just be lovely for him to say, "Can we have the debate at 10 a.m.?"
Between 10 and 4.
So Josh, I actually have a question for you. How do you think the debate affects RFK?
Ooh, Pogo would like
I mean,
that.
he just becomes a placeholder for some disaffected Democrats, so maybe instead of getting 2%, which was my initial thing, I might have to pony up on my
We have
side
that
bet with Brian.
documented. We have that documented.
Maybe he gets 4%. maybe 5.
I'm
I mean,
not
it's
saying
just,
that I'm not saying we support gambling here at Catholic Vote, but we like to put our money where our mouth is.
I mean, the thing is, ultimately, I stick by with what I said, my assessment of the race from the outset with regards to RFK. Like, he had an exceptional ad in the Super Bowl, and I said that was really, really good. But he needs to have a really good moment like this every month of the campaign, and that's so far it's a one-hit pony. He has not done enough, and he's becoming increasingly a non-factor. I mean, a non-factor. So if it actually, if people start to get concerned that independent-leaning Democrats think Biden is just a carcass and he's not worth voting, they might protest vote for RFK, so he becomes a placeholder.
I was just curious what you thought. Did anyone watch his event the night of the debate? I know he hosted his own. I didn't watch it.
No,
No,
we didn't watch it.
I was busy cracking beers and giving analysis, so
Great.
no, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
And we have some new players in the chat here. So shout out to anyone joining us live for the first time. Thank you so much. If you want to help support LOOPcast, we have what's called the Champions Club here at CV, and we depend on them. There are monthly donors, $10 or more, small donors, and we really depend on them to be able to plan for the future and to keep programming like LOOPcast free. So if you're interested, go over to CatholicVote.org/champions and check us out. We really appreciate it. Champions also get a free copy of our new book, For God, Country, and Sanity. And do we need a little sanity after that debate?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. So if you need some
Or
in
a
your
lot.
life, you'll love that book. You can also purchase it at our bookstore online. So again, head over to CatholicVote.org. Buy one for your pastor, buy one for the principal of your school, buy one for your mother-in-law. I don't know, anyone who needs a little bit of, some depth of thought going into this election. That's my pitch, and I'm sticking to it. Speaking of wins for Trump, we had we're just winning. Are you tired of winning, Josh? Are you tired of it?
No.
All right. Supreme Court this morning in Trump v. United States rules 6-3 that, quote, under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within for his official acts. This is a really big ruling, not only for Trump, but I would argue for our constitutional order. Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about it at all? I
mean, first of all, can you imagine a better 5 days for any campaign than this? The Trump campaign, this is cannot get any better. But of course, it also protects Biden because he'll be a former president pretty soon at this rate. And he will also be protected with this immunity. The idea here, when people are saying, so you're the president and the rule of law doesn't apply, you can do whatever you want. No. What it means is that we have a process for this, and that small local governments and court systems across the country cannot try to tie you up like Lilliputian. Here's what's going on. The Congress, our elected representatives, have the ability to adjudicate these things. If a president does something we think is outside the rule of law and an abomination, you impeach and remove him. That's what happens. That's how it's supposed to happen. The reason it happens that way is so that no president of any party could just suddenly be in, let's say, New York, or let's say a Democratic president travels somewhere to Texas and they just arrest him. No, whether he's a president or a former president, there is a process for this. And you just can't tie up presidents or former presidents for what they did in office as an official act of business. So it's a win for the rule of law.
It is, absolutely. And to back it up a little, so the way that this came about, of course, is after the January 6th, what they're calling the, quote, insurrection at the Capitol, the United States government brought this case against President Trump, indicting him on 4 counts for the conduct his conduct after the 2020 election, and saying that by asking the judiciary branch to review for election fraud, Trump was actually committing he was conspiring to overturn a valid election. And what the court says, Trump then moved, of course, to dismiss the indictments based on presidential immunity. And his argument was that a president has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions performed in the course of his official responsibilities. Right. One of which is to make sure that elections are fair and valid. And so the court upheld this. And I'm really impressed that it was Chief Justice Roberts who wrote the opinion, which says a lot. I was talking to a lawyer friend of mine this morning who will remain anonymous, but he was so excited. He texted me as soon as it comes out. He goes, "Since July 1776, it would not be an exaggeration to say that today's decision is one of the 3 bigliest," he did say that, "for the Constitution ever." We have a little joke, so bigliest is, yeah. But he's saying, he puts it right up there with cases like Marbury versus Madison, which established judicial review. He puts it right up there with McCulloch v. Maryland, which defined federal power over state power and allowed the federal government to establish a national bank. And he's saying this case, in defending the 3 branches with their separation of powers, is going to do so as much as those other 2 for the future of the United States. So big times here, great big times for the Constitution. This was from Justice Neil Gorsuch, little quote: "The question has become, as we've been exploring here today during oral arguments, how to segregate private from official conduct that may or may not enjoy some immunity." And that's exactly what the court ended up doing here. So they said, when it comes to official acts, we have absolute immunity. And not only that, but in prosecuting a president or bringing prosecution, you cannot go into his motives, his unofficial acts. You can't go into his motives for it and sort of try to delineate his motives, which is exactly what they've tried to do with Trump and be like,
oh, with the official ones, right? Yeah.
With the official ones. Yeah. You can't use your sort of like penumbrations of his motives, this making up of, well, he meant to
try to divine what he meant. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another further level of protection. So it's a great case. I'm excited to dig into it a little more. Clarence Thomas, my favorite, and probably yours too, Josh. I don't know. Is that a fair statement?
Greatest living American right now.
There you go. Oh, okay. That was decisive. I like it. Clarence Thomas has the the concurring opinion. And I love how he opens it. I'm just going to read, if that's okay. So few things would threaten our constitutional order more than criminally prosecuting a former president for his official acts. Fortunately, the Constitution does not permit us to chart such a dangerous course. And he wants to separately highlight another way in which this prosecution may violate our constitutional structure. The Attorney General of the United States here purported to appoint a private citizen as special counsel to prosecute a former president on behalf of the United States. And he goes on to talk about how this is so egregious, this has never happened before, and the court was absolutely right to define presidential immunity in this way. So great day for American history, I have to say. #winning. Am I right, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not just a big win for us, but it's a big win for America, because I think one of the fears that we have on the right and as Catholics is that we're constantly seeing new precedents be set for what the new standard of, what's acceptable. And so it's nice to see the Constitution win. Again, that's who's really winning here, the Constitution. And so it's always nice to see the Supreme Court do their jobs.
Absolutely.
Right.
We'll go with that. I like it.
I'm a harsh critic.
Yeah, and we're going to dig in a little more on Wednesday. We're going to dig into just the Supreme Court session overall, because we're now at the end of it. This announcement concludes what was a sort of up and down season for conservatives, for constitutional originalists on the Supreme Court. So we're going to have Tinfoil Tom on to break it all down, from the abortion cases to this most recent Trump case. I love, too, that of probably one of the top 3 Constitution cases in our history, Trump's name is going to be on one of them. Like, for all of perpetuity, it's just going to be the Trump case. Like Marbury, McCulloch, and Trump, and they can't do anything about it. history was
Well,
written.
and part of it is that, we would have never had this case had it not been for Biden trying to prosecute his former and future political opponent.
Exactly. Speaking of prison, which we weren't really, but I'm trying to channel Pogo with his amazing ability to segue. Can you tell? I'm struggling. Okay. Steve Bannon, former Trump ally, now who knows what, reported to prison this morning. And this has been on conservative Twitter. We had all of this, oh my gosh, political prisoner, martyr for the cause. Logan, what went down and how should people be? Oh, look at him. There's a nice picture of him right there on the screen. What did you say? He looks like an unwashed President Snow from Hunger Games. I don't know.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Come on, shave.
Typically, bathe, shave. Steve Bannon, he's got some good points, but I think you made a good point earlier. This is kind of his brand. He made a fun video last night for those who haven't seen it, the night before turning himself in. And so Steve Bannon's never been one to hold his tongue, but he has been a long-term ally of President Trump. And he basically had to report to prison after defying a subpoena during the congressional investigation of the insurrection. So January 6th, they filed for a delay in the prison sentence. He was denied. This was after an appeal that he pushed to try to push it down. And ultimately, here we are. But one thing I will say, it's not particularly salacious that he ended up in jail over this. It's not uncommon, but it is uncommon for them to do it to Democrat activists. So I think that's worth saying. Well, let's not give AP a.
Yeah. Do not subscribe to AP. Do not spend your money on the AP. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, we were talking about earlier, all this does is continue to elevate his platform. He's going to make a ton of money off of this, and odds are he doesn't stay there very long. So
it's only
I think
4 months. So
it's only 4 months.
If he even serves that. They're just trying to keep him quiet till the election's over.
Yeah. How did
stop talking?
So I'm wondering if how did he make this into I'm a political prisoner? If he ignored a subpoena, it's a fair sentence. How did he turn this around?
Yeah, it's just that it's the double standard, because Democrats can ignore subpoenas and nothing really ever happens to them, slap on the wrist or whatever, but then throw the book at them. That's what they do with conservatives. So that's exactly the point.
Well, and I think it's fair to say, I mean, the timing's not, a coincidence. It rarely is. And with someone as vocal as Bannon, it's helpful for them to shut him up for a little while. So, I can't say that. It's easy to say this is politically motivated. But Steve,
probably
you're going to make a lot of money over the next 4 months from prison. We salute you.
Small price to pay, probably, in his estimation.
Take a shower.
Goodness. Yeah. Take a shower. Ouch. All right. Well, I think we're going to move into the Twilight Zone here, see what we can dig into here. So Josh, what do you got for us today?
Well, with regards to Twilight Zone, this is kind of a sad story. You start thinking about how much of an effect crime has. There's an illegal alien that entered the country and from Haiti. He's been charged in the rape of a 15-year-old girl from Boston. He is out of jail because a left-wing judge granted him bail. But what are we doing as a country when we let these kind of thugs, these kind of rapists even out of? It's one thing to now the left. Whenever we talk about crime from illegal immigrants, most Americans well, if they're here illegally, any crime they commit is a double tragedy because they should have never been here to begin with, right? And then the left is oh wow, wait a minute now. Not everyone who comes into the country illegally commits crimes other than the crime of entering illegally. But I understand that. But the point is, you don't have to let them out on bail.
Right.
Like a $500 bail. why is this evil guy allowed to see oxygen outside? Why is he able to see sunshine? Keep him behind bars. This is what I'm saying. Like, the left is out of their minds when it comes to crime. And they just think, oh, well, just let him out. Let him out and bail, $500 bail. Can you imagine that?
Oh my gosh.
I think you start to think about what our justice system amounts to, and what are you saying to the parents of this, of the victim here?
Right.
$500. You can get out of jail.
What is going through the judge's mind when he does something like that?
He's a hero for the left-wing cause.
For the undocumented migrants.
But like, what type of message also, not only is it sending to Americans, to the parents of this little girl, what type of message are we sending to other countries? The types of people that now are going to say, America's not so bad. You can go do whatever you want. $500, get off cheap. I think we're setting,
and again,
talk about precedent.
And the Democrats know that this issue is hurting them so much so that Biden was expecting that Trump was going to bring up the case of this 12-year-old girl in Houston who was tragically abused, raped, and killed, right? And so Biden himself is so paranoid about this being brought up by Trump that Biden brings it up during a question on abortion. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
But the Democrats know, and this is the thing, Democrats are only concerned about this because it's an election year and because it's hurting them politically. Other than that, they don't really give they don't give a rip. And this is what drives me crazy. It's like, how can you be so callous towards the citizens of your country? But I think so many of the left, they live, they're sort of immune from this because they live in a bubble. They live in nicer neighborhoods. And the average Joe, blue collar folks, white collar, blue collar folks of all colors, white, black, brown, they deal with this kind of crime and they see what's going on with their own eyes. And the left is ignoring it and they're just whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah.
They deserve defeat big time.
Yeah, if you want a glimpse inside the bubble, Olivia Reingold has a great piece over on Free Press today, and she calls it Inside the Biden Bubble. She was assigned to go to Biden's event at the Stonewall Inn on Friday, which was celebrating the end of Pride Month. Elton John was there. They unveiled some monument to LGBTQ plus activists. And she ended up, so she was just going to cover this, but she ended up, since it was the day after the debate, asking around all the people there if they had watched the debate, what they thought about it. And it was unbelievable to read through the responses of people who said, yeah, I watched the debate. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, he had some slip ups, but the substance was so good of what he was saying. And he's been such a great president. Yes, you have to read it, Josh. You would just probably shouldn't. Your blood pressure would.
Elton John lives in a swing state. He lives in Georgia. I don't know. Is he a U.S. citizen? I don't even know.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure he votes regardless. So, that's all good. It was so bad. But yeah, just that window into the bubble. And look, I'm sure people look at us and they're like, you live in a bubble too. But I think it's a bubble that's more in touch with reality, like boots on the ground, hands in the grass. We're actually raising children. We're actually building lives here in America. The Stonewall riot people were just unbelievable. It was another world. Okay, Logan.
Yes.
What do you got?
So, another election season, another abortion initiative on the ballot. And so one of the states that we're watching closely and getting involved with at Catholic Vote is Florida. For those of you who have not kept up or kept your finger on the pulse of Florida could be the big win that the pro-life movement so desperately needs. And there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons that go into that. One of them being we have that 10-point buffer in Florida for constitutional changes that we were trying to get passed in Ohio. Rest in peace. And so we already have that in Florida. And then in addition to that, we have nearly 1 million extra registered Republicans. And you can bet about half of those are pro-life and about half of those will go vote. And so that's a good place to start when you're dealing with an amendment. Well, we had our first ad on our side of things roll down the pipe just this morning. And so you're seeing it here first.
Oh my gosh,
I wanted to share.
and switch, sleight of hand, smoke and mirrors, all deceptions that make one thing seem like another. Like Amendment 4, an abortion amendment that's much more extreme than at first it seems. Here's Amendment 4, and here are other amendments from years past. Most provide detailed definitions of essential words, so voters know what they're voting on. So how many definitions does Amendment 4 provide? 0. This small trick is a big scam. Amendment 4 says no law shall restrict abortion before viability, but never defines viability. It allows late-term abortions for a patient's health, but never defines patient's health. It allows so-called healthcare providers, not doctors, to define these terms, but never defines healthcare provider, a term broad enough to include non-medical staff at abortion clinics. Just as bad, Amendment 4 eliminates Florida's parental consent laws, replacing consent with notification and making abortion the only medical procedure a minor could undergo without a parent's consent. They didn't have to write Amendment 4 this way, but they did. Why? Because they want to deceive you, to make their extreme amendment seem reasonable. This is what Amendment 4's ballot summary says, but this is what it means. No law shall prohibit any abortion at any time for any reason determined by abortion clinic employees. This amendment makes abortion the only medical procedure your child can undergo without your consent. It sounds extreme because it is extreme. No definitions, no doctors, no parental consent. Amendment 4, way too extreme and not what it seems. Bait and
That's powerful.
So that lays it out pretty clear what we're dealing with. And I think that, hopefully this ad goes far and wide across the state. But yeah, so if you are in Florida or if you have friends in Florida, make sure you tell them to get in touch with Catholic Vote so we can get them plugged into the community there that's working so hard to defeat this.
That's amazing.
Gotta vote no on 4 in Florida.
No one for it. Well, and I think it's important to point out too that this isn't just Florida. This is the tactic that we've seen time and again. We saw it in Ohio. I mean, we saw it in Canada. You could probably go on, Logan, about
Michigan,
right? Where else are we seeing these kinds of amendments that for this November?
Nevada, Arizona, Montana, Nebraska, New York.
the list goes on.
Yeah, there's 12 of them. Yeah, there's 12
That's
of them.
amazing. That's amazing. And it's a coordinated effort too, because you see that similar.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
amazing.
they do, they know what they're doing when they go into each of these states, which is why it's written differently. And they're learning as they go along, as you saw in this ad in the very short summary of what's on the ballot. It says does not affect parental notification. Why did they put that? Because they saw what happened in Ohio. People were so upset about the parental consent portion. They thought, well, let's make the last line, this does not affect parental notification laws, because voters will see that and say, oh, well, this has nothing to do with parental consent. Notification and consent are two very different things. In addition to that, and the thing the ad didn't say that I wish it did, healthcare providers is already defined in Florida statute. And the list is very long. And the list includes things like nursing home administrators, fitness instructors,
Fitness instructors.
Fitness.
Lord.
So like your trainer can say, well, you can't lift weights if you're pregnant. Go ahead and get an abortion. And so it's a very scary, again, precedent that we're setting. And so hopefully Florida will be the win that we need. And hopefully these other states pull through as well. But it's going to be more of an uphill battle in some of these states that you are dealing with the 50% plus one.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to a lot of people, they see this kind of language and we explain it to them and how extreme it is. And the response is just, well, that can't be happening. That can't be true. It's too unbelievable. But I love this ad because it literally is walking you through the language and you can see it being edited and highlighted as you go.
So I think one thing we've learned on our side is people need to be able to self-verify what you're saying, which is why I've said to activists in the state of Florida and in other states, it's hard to convince someone in 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds with a voter. It is hard to convince them of the sanctity of life in 30 seconds. But what you can do is convince them that this language is dangerous for a multitude of reasons. One of them being it's going to get caught up in civil litigation for a decade minimum. And so, if you are pro-choice, this really isn't the angle you want to go. And so, this allows people to self-verify after you gain that trust and you have that dialogue with a voter. Then you can start working towards changing their hearts and minds. But we have to win this election.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to contribute to Catholic Vote's election efforts, again, please go and visit CatholicVote.org. You can check out how we're campaigning, the great work that Logan's doing. So go ahead and check that out. Also, make sure you're subscribed to The Loop. If you're not subscribed to The Loop, what are we doing here? Because that's where you're going to hear all of the developments and updates and what's going on in your state and all the good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to skip down to my happy one, Simon. I'm going to try and end on a happy note here. We had the Olympic gymnastics trials over the weekend, and who doesn't love gymnastics at the Olympics? When I was a kid, I watched the Olympics for gymnastics in the summer, track and field in the summer, and ice skating in the winter, of course, because I'm a girl and that's what we like to watch. So we had Simone Biles shows up at the Olympic trials, and I just have to set it up a little bit. So Simone Biles, great backstory, really heartwarming, out of foster care, really overcame a lot of challenges in her life. She is now 27 years old, which is basically as old as Joe Biden is, but for gymnastics. Like, she's 27 is considered over the hill. You should have long ago started your own gym and been training the next generation. She's still going. And not only is she still going, she is still crushing it. She's going to the Olympics. She beat everyone else in the field by 5 points. So she had like over 117 points. The next closest girl was almost 112. It was an amazing performance from her. And she scored this amazing 15.975 on the vault, doing her signature Yushchenko double. It was amazing. It was an amazing night. I don't know if you want to play this, Simon. You can just see her flying over. There she goes. I wish I could do that. Oh, is it going to play? There she goes.
We need the volume.
Oh, she flips. She does the double. I mean, she's like the only person in the world who can do this. Crowd goes quiet. And over again. She's amazing. I love it. Such a good story. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the Olympics. I feel like
you wanted to end with a good note, and I can't help but be like a little bit. The thing is,
why am I not?
No,
surprised?
Hold on a second. I think she's a fantastic athlete, and she is a joy to watch.
He's starting to sound like her husband.
Yeah.
Well,
that is like, true. How did you know?
It's just kind of sad though when I see her, because you're right. She had this really hard background, and she was adopted by her grandparents, and it would have been so wonderful if she would have taken the opportunity to say that's why she's pro-life or whatever. But no, she's totally very, very pro-choice, and it was just kind of a sad thing
that is a sad thing.
That. Yeah. So, but overall, just like when it comes to our athletes, I will tip my hat. She is an exceptional athlete and a gifted lady.
Yeah, and even if like on the presidential level, it's hard to be proud of the United States right now. We're just really proud of the USA team and hope that they do really well at the Olympics. So we're going to sign off, but I wanted to ask Logan, are you doing anything special for the 4th of July? Any traditions that you like to uphold?
So my fiance is now the state senator for the area as of last week. And
congratulations.
Yes, we're excited. He's right there in that photo. We're going to be in parades all day. So Memorial Day is like our 4th of July in the sense that like we get to enjoy it. But 4th of July is a working holiday for politicians. So.
That's true. Very true.
Political.
How about you, John?
I had a pro-abortion Senator, Debbie Stabenow, walk in the parade in my town, and I booed her so much she never came back. So go figure.
But did she give you candy with a sticker on it?
No,
Would
she
you
stayed
booed
pretty
her
far away
less?
from me. I was pretty menacing, but yeah, I like to do the parade thing too. It's fun. Yuck it up with the people. Most of the people now in my area are Republican now. So when I first moved to my small town, it was a Democrat in the state representative seat and the congressional seat, but no longer. So
That's
All
pretty
thanks to
great.
you, sure.
I'm not gonna not take credit, but
That's right.
He
Take
booed the
credit where it's
Democrats
due.
out of town.
All right. Well, if you want to support Loopcast in other ways, you can go ahead and subscribe. We are on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube as well. Ring the notification bell. We had a great live show with the presidential debate, and we're planning more events like that. So definitely make sure you have that notification bell dinged. And the best thing, of course, that you can do for us is pray for us. So we'll end with St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Thomas More. Pray for us, and we'll see you on our next show.